Hello everyone, it's Dylan from Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything, and welcome back to another Appreciating Yu-Gi-Oh! Episode. This is episode 11, and we have officially entered into the 5Ds era. For those of you that don't know, this is a segment that I do with my friend Rarity Fangirl, where we look at really cool aspects and just all the aspects of a specific piece of Yu-Gi-Oh! Media, whether that's an anime, whether it's the manga, whether it's a movie. We plan to cover everything. If you're looking for plenty of DM and GX content, head over to the playlist in the description because we have already talked about all of those shows. And today we are starting with one of my favorites, Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, motorcycles, card games. Let's freaking go. And not only do we have Rarity on as always, but we have a special guest joining us for, I believe, only the second time in Appreciating Yu-Gi-Oh! History, which is very, very exciting. His name is Jeff. We'll bring him on in a little bit. Rarity, how are you doing today?
I am doing lovely, and hello, friends! As I said last time, or as you guys know, Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds is in my top 3 favorite Yu-Gi-Ohs. It is my third favorite Yu-Gi-Oh! But it is also the first Yu-Gi-Oh! I ever watched. So we've had people on the show who are very nostalgic for DM and GX, but 5Ds is my jam. That is the one that I grew up with. So of course, I am so excited to talk about it with all of you and our special guest. So I'm going to introduce him. So as you guys may know, I frequently collaborate with a lot of wonderful people over on my channel, but our special guest, Jeff, today has been one of my most frequent collaborators. If you guys have ever seen a lot of the art of my avatar Crescent on my channel, or even some of the Go Rush related art collabs that we've done, or some other things like that, the beautiful artist behind the pen of all those is Jeff, who's someone I met through this community. And we've been close friends for almost 10 years now. It's kind of crazy. And I know nobody better who loves 5Ds as much as Jeff does. So I am so happy to finally have him behind the mic to get to share his thoughts. So Jeff, hello! Welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Rarity. Thank you, Dylan. It's an honor to be here to share our love for the franchise, and this being one of my absolute personal favorite installment in the entire series, it's an absolute honor to be here.
We're happy to have you.
Yeah, very happy to have you. Going to be a lot of fun. I'm working on a video that'll hopefully be out this month where I will, for the first time ever, officially rank all the Yu-Gi-Oh! Shows from what I think is best to worst. And I will say 5D is also in my top 3. Not gonna spoil how high it might be, but I will kind of agree with Rarity there that it is in my top 3. But we have some great topics that we're going to be discussing, and of course I'm going to have Rarity and Jeff's socials linked down below in the description. Please give them a follow, and I'm going to have the timestamps for each segment that we talk about in case you wanted to maybe skip around. We're going to talk about just overall thoughts on 5Ds. Then we are going to rank all of the 5Ds arcs. We're going to talk a little bit about the English dub. We're going to talk a little bit about the music. Then we're going to do our top 3 favorite characters and some of our favorite duels. And then we're going to answer the age-old question, one of the most common questions when people look back and discuss 5Ds. Would you prefer if the show ended after Dark Signers, which was the original intention? So a lot of great segments here. And of course, we're just going to start with just overall thoughts on Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. I mean, I've said it before. I think 5Ds is one of the strongest Yu-Gi-Oh! Shows. Something about the entire series as a whole always gives me a nostalgia feeling more than any Yu-Gi-Oh! Show. So I will say this. I actually was watching 5Ds live, when I was in high school. I love the characters, Yusei being my favorite protagonist. I know some people always like to claim, oh, he's a Mary Sue, but I really reject that notion about Yusei. He was not a perfect character by any means. You look at the emotions he had in his duel against Roger during the Dark Signers arc, the guilt that he had. Yusei was a flawed character in a lot of regards, despite his perfect dueling record, but I think that's what made him human, and I think that's what made him such a perfectly relatable character. The overall classism as well that 5Ds tackled, which wasn't something that I appreciated until I was a little older, between the commons and the tops, right? The poor and the rich. I think they handled the classism element really well, which is sadly a very realistic and relatable discussion for a lot of people across the world. And I think they handled a really, really mature and tough to discuss topic in a really graceful way. And the cast of characters, man, between Jack, Akiza, even the twins were enjoyable. Crow. There were the 5Ds just had an ensemble of really enjoyable and easy to root for characters. Later on in the show, you throw in a character like Antinomy and Bruno, who's one of my favorite characters really in the entire franchise. I absolutely love the role that he played. And even though I wasn't as high on characters like Zone, I still thought Zone was a really solid final villain. I thought Godwin was a really good villain. Divine was probably the most sick and twisted villain in the entire franchise, given what he did. And so you had a lot of like really twisted villains and sympathetic villains all wrapped into one show here. The duel against Team Ragnarok is a classic, and the Ragnarok trio were not villains by any means, but, you know, using the Nordic gods almost to rival the Egyptian gods in a way, and then seeing how Yusei and our team had to get over them is one of my more fonder memories of that 4th season before the Arc Cradle arc. You know, I could go on and gush about Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, but between the setting, between the story, I haven't even touched on Crash Town and Kyoto, which was an incredible storyline in terms of a man dealing with uncontrollable grief to the point where he's reached pretty much the end and he just wants things to be over, and then Yusei having to come in and save him on an emotional level as well as a realistic level. And then, of course, you have the kids in Nico, and I can't remember the other one's name, but you have the twins that he ends up, you know, basically becoming like a father figure over, giving him a new purpose to life. I mean, that arc, I think, is absolutely beautiful. 5Ds is just filled with incredible storytelling arcs and character moments, and man, I could gush on about it for a very long time. I think very, very positively of Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, and, you know, to keep my thoughts a little bit more contained so this doesn't become a 90-minute episode, I'll cut myself off there. But Rarity, I would love to jump it to you. Your history with 5Ds, I know for you, I believe 5Ds was your first ever show when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh! So, you know, talk about that and your overall thoughts. Very excited to hear.
Yeah, you're correct. So I watched Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds when it aired on Cartoon Network as a kid. Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D was my first exposure to Yu-Gi-Oh! And then I saw DM and then GX, then Zexal 5, Arc 5, and then the Order, so on and so forth. And there was something about it that really hooked me, because beforehand I was really into Pokemon. I was a big Bakugan fan, so Yu-Gi-Oh! Of course kind of hits with me. But I think what really hit me about 5Ds was just, I don't know, like the story of the bonds. I related a lot to Ruka as a character as a kid, as I'm someone who was didn't have a lot of friends and kind of had to, you know, make imaginary friends, kind of escapism into media. We all know how that is. And so I really related to her, but just the storytelling of everything, I got just hooked. And then I bought the 5Ds video games. I believe, Dylan, you've played all the 3 main DS games by now. They are peak video games. They were like my life. I love them. My first Yu-Gi-Oh cards, I think the first Yu-Gi-Oh card I ever owned was an Ancient Fairy Dragon from the tin. Sadly, I think I lost that on one of my moves as a kid. And I loved that. And so I have a very, as I said, nostalgic feeling towards 5Ds, but 5Ds is just peak. I think that's just the really good word to describe it. It's not my favorite. I think the reason why Arc 5 and Go Rush for me are above it is due to just the emotional, I think when those shows came out and where it was at a point of my life, I think that's part of why, and some of the characters I think I resonate a little bit more with, but obviously I love pretty much all the 5Ds cast. I think they're all fantastic characters, especially my favorites, which I'll talk about during the favorite segment. But overall, it's just really good storytelling. It's very good music. It's just a really well-crafted product, even though there is some of the downsides to it, which no Yu-Gi-Oh! Is perfect. I think we've made that a pretty big point in this podcast so far, but even like my favorite Yu-Gi-Ohs, there's obviously things, and I don't think any of them are perfect, but 5Ds just is so much effort, I think, put into Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, and Dylan was talking about this during the Talking Yu-Gi-Oh! Segment yesterday. I believe there should be a video about that, his opening monologue. Great segment, by the way. Please go watch Talking Yu-Gi-Oh! Show. It's great. Intro segment, where he was talking about the popularity of 5Ds still existing in Japan for beating the Chronicles insane to me. I think 5Ds is arguably the second most popular Yu-Gi-Oh! After the original, just all over the world. I feel it's very beloved, and it's really funny because a lot of people, I believe when it first was being announced, were making fun of it because of the motorcycle stuff, but Turbo Duels, or Riding Duels, whatever you want to call them, are so cool. Like, how do you think this is not the coolest thing ever? Like the mechanics were different, the, way they got to do the animation, just, 5Ds is so great. So I love it. Even though there are some things that I wish probably could have been different, but I think that about every Yu-Gi-Oh, of course. I feel like there's always something you could want to make based on your own personal preference, and the overall themes, of course, of friendship and bonds and that no card is worthless. Gosh, peak. That's what I think about it. So, Jeff, what are your thoughts about it? I know that you were a competitive player during this time period, so I'm curious how that kind of ties into your 5Ds experience.
Well, I have been playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Since the original start of the DM era, but for me, 5Ds is where things really took off for me, especially in the competitive scene and just my general love for the anime as a whole. I truly believe that 5Ds in its entirety is like the absolute peak of Yu-Gi-Oh! Storytelling. So much went into it, and I can't just not think that so much labor of love and thought really went into the core themes of it, from the political into my personal favorite, the psychological aspects of Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. Definitely, one of the things I appreciated the most about it was that of all the series that have come out of today, it's had one of the strongest essences in the romantic elements, which is something a lot of shonen anime, not just Yu-Gi-Oh, tends to shy away from. In terms of my overall experience with it, in terms of 5Ds, much like yourself, Dylan, I watched Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds at the start in high school when I first got into actually watching anime directly from the Japanese source online. It's hard for me to really put into words the impact 5Ds has had on me over the years, not just from the experiences, but also from my own artistic influence as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's amazing, and it just goes to speak that like every show influences different people in different ways. Sometimes it's the characters, sometimes it's the story, sometimes it's the duels, sometimes it's the cards, sometimes it's the art, and I think that's what really makes a show, and particularly Yu-Gi-Oh, such a beautiful piece of work. And yeah, I kind of agree with you there, Jeff, that there is so much to talk about that it's a little overwhelming to just like get into the inertia of what makes this show so special. So I think at this point, like, we just go into the arcs. I think ranking the arcs is what we're going to do next. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I made a video where I ranked every Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters arc, and I planned to do that for every show. And I certainly will do that for every show. But yeah, people are going to get a little sneak peek of my 5Ds rankings. Of course, I'm not going to go as in depth on each one as I would if it was a specific video. But I'm going to start from the weakest, and then I'll work my way up to the strongest. For me, the weakest is the pre-WRGP. This is the only part of 5Ds that I feel flounders a little bit, where it doesn't really know what it wants to be post Dark Signers arc, and you could kind of tell that the original plan was kind of for the show to wrap up after the Dark Signers if you watch the pre-World Racing Grand Prix, because I feel like there were just a lot of random one-off duels. Some of them were memorable, most of them really weren't, and it feels like they were just kind of trying to find their footing. So to me, I think that's the weakest part of 5Ds, and I would argue the only arc that isn't, like, good to great. Like, I think very highly of a lot of the 5Ds arcs. And the next one is the World Racing Grand Prix. While it's second to last here, I don't think it's a bad arc by any means. There's a lot of really, really memorable duels. I didn't love, like, the 3v3 trio duel style setup all that much. I think it worked a lot. I've always been someone that usually prefers the 1v1s, and this arc didn't really have many. I mean, I did like the Jack Atlas fighting the Red Nova Spirit, which is within this arc. So that was a really, really cool duel. The Ragnarok duel is really cool, but it's got one of the most annoying finishes, in my opinion, in the entire franchise, when Yusei convinces the guy, was it Team Taio who just had to end their turn?
It was Team Unicorn, not Team Taio was goated. It's the Team Unicorn duel.
Yeah, I always get those teams confused. Team Unicorn, thank you. All he had to do was end his turn, and Yusei somehow gives this speech about how he's got to try to win, like, legitimately, and he actually falls for it, and Yusei ends up getting the win. I mean, good marks on Yusei, but I got to tell you, I made a video, top 10 duels I personally hated. That one was high on it. I can't stand, because the ending is just so ridiculous to a point where it actually annoys me. So, unfortunately, that duel maybe brings down the arc a little bit for me. Crash Town is 4th. Crash Town, again, even though it's in the bottom half, it's really in the bottom half only because of its length. It's much shorter than all of these other arcs, and some people don't even consider Crash Town its own arc and put it within the pre-WRGP arc. But Crash Town, if we're going to judge it on its own, it's an incredibly heart-wrenching and heartwarming story about a man's redemption after reaching the lowest point that one could possibly reach. And it's probably something that a lot of people, I think, can relate to, and it's beautifully done, in my opinion. And then by the way, Jack and Crow showing up at the end of that is also just such a badass moment. The Lawton duel and seeing Kiadu finally defeat Lawton at the end, it's really good. But the next 3 just have a little bit more substance in terms of length. The Fortune Cup is number 3 for me. One of the best starting arcs in any Yu-Gi-Oh! I think the only arc I prefer more than the Fortune Cup starting a Yu-Gi-Oh! Show is actually Arc 5's opening arc. I really, really love the beginning of Arc 5. Duelist Kingdom is also pretty up there, but Fortune Cup is an incredible start to Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. And then number 2 is the Arc Cradle and the Epilogue. I think the Arc Cradle is just an incredible conclusionary arc. It's got some of my favorite duels. It's got insane payoffs. Antinomy is incredible. And, like, it's just a wonderful, wonderful arc. And then, of course, the top one is the Dark Signers. Not only the top arc in Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, but maybe the number 1 arc in the entire Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise. My big 3, I've said it many times, Dark Signers, Barry and Onslaught, and Battle City. And I think Dark Signers is either 1 or 2, but it's definitely a top 3 arc. The duels are incredible, the emotion's incredible, the side stories with Jack and Carly and, you know, Crow becoming a signer at the end, the duel against Godwin. There's just Aki and Misty and Divine. There's so many incredible side plots. The only thing that I didn't love about the Dark Signers was the Rua Ruka versus Divok duel. That one always felt a little strange to me. Not that I didn't like it, but it always felt like kind of the sore thumb of that arc. But despite that duel, everything else I think is just like A++, and I think it's the greatest arc in 5D. So that's how I rank it. I'm interested to hear how you guys have your rankings set up. Rarity, if you wanna go first.
Sure. And I will, funny enough, I'll go the same order of going on bottom to top. And this list might be kind of similar. So I also have the pre-WRGP at the bottom. Aside from, I think this arc is funnier in the dub because most of the one-off duels get a lot funnier. So I feel like that definitely helps it for the dub's perspective, but a lot of them also have storylines that don't really go anywhere. Remember there was that one kid in like Rua and Ruka's class that like wanted to steal Yusei's Stardust Dragon that's never brought up again?
Oh no, not him.
Yeah, Sly.
Yeah. What was his name? I don't remember. Was it Sid? I don't remember.
I think it was Sly.
Sly, yes, Sly, yeah. Sid was the guy that with the nightmare wheel. Yeah, so there's a lot of like one-offs that don't really do much. Of course, they introduce like the ghost and things. And Aki, the best part of this arc is Aki getting her Turbo Duel license, I think is the best part of this arc because it's a really nice development moment. And Sherry's introduction. I like Sherry too. Sherry's a really cool character. I really love her. So I think that was cool, but aside from that, not the best. But there's still some decent stuff in it, but definitely is the weakest point of 5Ds. That I also then have the World Racing Grand Prix. Aside from, I'd say, the Team Taiyo duel, a lot of those duels for me don't hit as hard. The Team Ragnarok duel is also really good. The Team New World duel is one of those, just not the most interesting play-wise to me. I guess it's because I've kind of seen this strategy used in other card game stuff. I was talking about it with Jeff Works. We're both big fans of Vanguard. It's a very similar strategy to what Ren in the Team AL4 fight versus Team Tri-3, where basically the first 2 players are just there to set up for the 3rd player to give them a bunch of resources to win. Instead of like everybody like coming together like bonds. It's symbolized really well. But I think most of those, again, they're not really solo duels. It was just kind of a meh. But I also do like the Jack Atlas Crimson Dragon, of course, Crimson Devil. I really like that too. And of course, in that arc, there was the time travel stuff that the dub cut out, the stuff where we learned about Jaeger's family. I like that, but overall, not the best. Then I have Crash Town. Single best, I would say, self-contained arc in Yu-Gi-Oh! Just a self-contained story that is focused on one character, and you can really tell Crash Town they wanted to make. Like, they designed this whole new setting, some new music, new designs for Kiryu, new monsters. You can really, really tell that the team, this was a story they wanted to tell. They felt that Kiryu as a character, his story after Darksiders was not done. Unlike Carly, which I'm going to get to talk about Carly later. But they just felt like his story needed to continue, and I really like that he got to turn the town and redeem himself. I feel like that's such a beautiful way, because he was definitely a character, I think, if Crash Town didn't happen, would have been a missed potential. So I'm really, really happy for that. And as you said, the way that Jack and Crow come in at the end with team satisfaction reuniting. Chef's kiss, also the fact they try to shoot kids. What is it? The lady tries to shoot the kids. It's like pretty intense, and there's gun duel discs. It's like such a classic tribute to Westerns, and it really feels like something the team was like, is this really overall to the overall plot? No, but we're here doing a character arc. And I honestly wish that the way that Kiryu's story wrapped up was kind of something I was hoping that they were going to do with Yugioh in Go Rush, with him finally learning to love living. But they didn't really kind of do that but, you know, we'll talk about Go Rush when we get to that. Then I'd say Fortune Cup. Again, are looking very similar. The Fortune Cup arc, as you said, is probably the best start to any Yu-Gi-Oh show. It is so good. I rewatched that arc so many times as a kid. I just think it sets up the character so well, which is really funny because for half of it, Yusei's by himself for the most part.
Yeah.
It really is carried by Yusei as a character, but it does such a good job with the world building. I think every single duel in the arc has a purpose in some form, and I think that the tournament duels are also just really, really good. I love Aki's introduction duel. I love her duel with Yusei is a really big highlight. The emotional storytelling there, oh my gosh. And, like, I think all the turbo duels are cool. The Jack and Yusei duel at the end is really good. The setup, just, like, all of it is so, so good. And it's a really good setup for not just the characters and the story, but also, of course, the Darksiders arc, which is my number one. So, number two, we have the same list, funny enough, is Arc Cradle / the epilogue. I think that I would have put Fortune Cup higher if the epilogue wasn't included in Arc Cradle, because I think the epilogue of 5Ds is super strong. That final duel with Jack and Yusei, I think, is my favorite, what we consider a ceremonial duel. I really, really love that duel, especially because Yusei won with Junk Warrior and not Stardust Dragon.
Right.
The fact he won with his first ace monster, getting it to like 5,000 attack. There's Yaksudo Melody plays in that episode. And of course the Arc Cradle. Every single duel in the Arc Cradle is a banger. Leo awakening as a signer was awesome. The Bruno Yusei duel makes me cry. Zone's duel I thought was really cool. The fact that Poria dueled Zone still shocks me. Like, that came out of almost kind of like nowhere, but I really, really liked it. Resolving Sherry as a character was great, especially because, well, I was a dub first watcher and I wanted to know what happened to her because the dub doesn't really acknowledge her existence because the episodes that explain that were cut. So boo. So it was nice to see her conclusion. And then Aki learning her psychic powers can heal. Oh, so good. And totally, Yusei and Aki had that kiss in the garage. I don't care what anyone says. They totally had a kiss in the garage.
Absolutely.
Yes, they did. They kissed in the garage. Let's go. But yeah. And then, of course, number one, Darksiders. I feel like, again, with the same list, Darksiders is the best arc in any Yu-Gi-Oh! I feel like it's just so good. It's so well crafted. For funny enough, my low point is the Crow and Bomber duel. I don't think that duel is as good. I like the Rua and Ruka duel because, number one, I like the twins, but number two, I think it was cool we got to see more of the Duel Monster Spirit World lore. I thought that was cool. I've always felt Ruka was more of a non-dueling character, which she definitely was, and Rua was more the duelist, and I'm fine with that personally. As someone who loves spirit stuff, as I talked about in my videos before, absolutely love the Spirit World stuff, but man, the Darksiders arc has two of my favorite duels in it, which I'll talk about during the duel segment. Just so good. The emotions, all the characters I feel like had a good role. The rivalries between all the Darksiders and the Signers were so good. The storytelling, connecting it back to Yusei's dad, and the slow build-up. Like, I will never forget the look on my face when Yusei technically lost to Kiryu. I will never forget my face. As a kid, I was like, oh, no! I was like, was he gonna die? And then, you know, like the doctor has to like fix him. So good. So yeah, we have the same list. Now, Jeff, we'll see if you have the same list or not. So, let's see.
I'm gonna tell you right now, my list is very similar, but there are a few somewhat differences.
Good.
Oh,
Good.
okay.
I'm happy. I'm happy to hear that.
All right, so starting from the bottom, my weakest is like yourselves, the WRGP. While I do genuinely love a lot of the one-off characters, like you put Dylan, it just very clearly showcased that they were not prepared to go directly into a second season after the Dark Signers arc. Mm-hmm. It just took too long of a start. It took too long of a startup to really get the narrative going. And I'm not a fan of filler episodes. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not, and there just wasn't a lot there. And Rarity can attest to this. I'm a person who genuinely loves situations and characters that usually end up with a lot of missed potential. The Sly segment really frustrated me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I genuinely wanted to see where that go. That kid was genuinely locked on to the Stardust Dragon. Like, okay, where is this going? Nowhere? Okay.
We never see him again. I mean, it's unbelievable.
No.
He like gets like a background cameo, I think, and yeah,
Right.
just like
Also-
especially because he looks like Chaz. Like
He
kind of
does.
looks like Chaz.
He does a little bit.
Another little factor that kind of irked at me a little bit was I genuinely loved Martha back in the Dark Signers arc, and then it feels like she gets effectively replaced by their landlord, who's like the mother of that clock kid. While it's funny she shows a favoritism toward Yusei, it's just like Martha was such a good character and actually had a connection to these guys.
I know that she was their mom. She's their mom. Literally, she's their surrogate mom. Yeah.
Moving on from that, my second least favorite was the actual WRGP.
Okay.
The duels were good, but like you said, especially with the Team Unicorn, as a former competitive player, I can't think of a single person I've ever met in my life who would actually fall for something like that. It was completely unrealistic.
Oh,
If you're in that kind of tournament, you're going for the win. You have a strategy, you commit to it. Also, all the build-up they had, all the build-up Team Unicorn had about their bonds and all the experiences they had that justified their unity. The fact that they caved into Yusei's pro tag speeches really just threw me off. Following that is Crash Town. I genuinely do love Crash Town. It is hands down one of my favorite, somewhat darker aspects of the 5D segment. Going into the surviving, surviving yet not surviving, because Kiryu did technically die. He did technically die and then brought back. So like, it's the weirdest kind of. I don't know if it's the right word for it, but from what I can translate, it's like the weirdest kind of. It's a very interesting kind of survivor's guilt.
Yeah, it plays on those really tough emotions in a very, very profound way, I think.
And it was a very interesting thing to watch, and I am an avid lover of the Western theme. I got that through my father. He watched a lot of Westerns growing up, and the gun dual disc, hands down, one of my favorites.
I know, you've drawn that dual disc. I know you love that dual disc.
I'm sorry, give me that thing any day. Take my money. Number 3 is actually Arc Cradle.
Okay, cool. A little bit of a change up.
Yeah, the Arc Cradle duels were great, and Cinnamie, Aporia, just like the whole thing was very strong. I'd definitely give that. And actually, I do genuinely like Zone as a villain, because a little bit unlike what you said earlier, Dylan, I think Zone and his visions and his interpretations of things also kind of showcase what you said about Yusei being a flawed character, because he kind of lived through him in that respect. He effectively became Yusei to try and lead the future forward and prove that Yusei in and of itself is not always enough for everything.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Very well said.
The reason Arc Cradle is in my top 3, and Arc Cradle's actually kind of like moved around that slot a little bit, mostly because I'm a big time Leo fan. He is my favorite character in the whole thing, and he finally, in my opinion, he got the love he genuinely deserved in the Arc Cradle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that. He had an amazing moment. It's one of my favorite duels in the entire franchise, honestly, that Aporia duel. Yeah.
Following that is going into the Fortune Cup. Fortune Cup duels were very well thought out. Going into this and naturally leading up into the Dark Signers arc, which is my number one. The whole thing, both arcs flowing into each other were just very cohesively done. Like, the storyline was amazing. All of the character interactions and their relevancy, in my opinion, were just very spot on. And it had some of my favorite moments in the darker aspects of things.
Yeah, no, I love that. And so then obviously your top one, all of our top ones, is Dark Signers.
Dark Signers, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that is just. I mean, what can you even say about it? It's just such a great arc.
It is the absolute perfection of Yu-Gi-Oh, in my opinion. Jack and Carly. And this is actually one of my differing opinions from yourself. Actually, is the twins versus DVAC. Yes, I actually do genuinely like that duel. I will agree.
No, I love that.
I will agree, though, there were some things about it that I will touch on a little bit later that I would say definitely could have changed. But I think it should have been it should have been one of the stronger aspects of the season.
I think it would have been if they kept the original idea, probably for Leo to get a signer mark in that duel, which I imagine was the original idea.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's well said.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but Jeff, it's a great list, and you know what? At least we have a little bit of variety. You flipped the Arc Cradle and Fortune Cup, but yeah, I think that's probably a sign of a really strong show, a show that knows what it wants to be. If people are agreeing on the rankings that similarly, but everybody watching, please leave your rankings, of course, down below. We're going to talk about the dub really briefly because we're not doing a separate video on the dub. I don't have too much in regards to the English dub. Jeff, I don't know if you want to... I'm sure Rarity probably has the most to say on it, so she'll probably go last. I don't know if you have anything that you want to say briefly on it, Jeff?
Actually, I do.
Cool.
The first thing about the dub, I will say, is actually probably something some people might not even be aware of. Is that of the alternate themes, opening theme songs for the dub that were never actually used. I think there were like three in particular that were made. One of them that stood out to me most interestingly was actually the song "Ride to Survive."
We Ride to Survive. Really yes, dude, that is the best one of those alternates. So 100% agree. 100%.
It was such a catchy tune. Granted, it really didn't really give a whole lot into what was happening. It really kind of hammered into the turbo duel aspect of things, which I do respect. But it was kind of just a bop to me.
It really was. I'm trying. Oh, the other one that's really goofy, Better Be Better Than Best, which has like a jazz theme about it, and it's like a soul music theme. That one also cracks me up as well. And there's a lot of songs as well in those alternate themes. I actually did a Did You Know short on it not too long ago, where like it's very spot on. Like they talk about Jack in the song, they talk about Yusei, and it's like, all right, this is a little too on the nose, even for me. But no, We Ride to Survive. I certainly think I love Hyperdrive, but I think that one gives Hyperdrive a run for its money. Absolutely,
definitely. And I think the only other thing I would say in regards to the dub is just the voice acting and the funny lines that come out of it half the time. Like me and Rarity were actually discussing this not too long ago. The interaction between Akiza and Jack during the pre-WRGP arc, the cobble comment.
So when he says, I think you mean clobber, Akiza. Cobble is to make a shoe.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna cobble up some boots and kick Crow's butt.
So good.
Yeah, the dub always does a great job of, to some people's dismay, not taking itself too seriously, but it is hilarious at times for sure. Rarity, I'm sure you have a lot that you want to kind of dive into in regards to the dub.
I do, because so if you'd ask me, if you presented in front of me two choices to watch 5Ds in Japanese or English, and you only had to give one, well, I'd pick English, just because, again, it was how I watched the show originally. The Japanese version is great, the superior storytelling, obviously, blah, blah, blah. But I would argue, despite the censorship, 5D's dub, I still think, does a good job of making the story as dramatic as they were allowed to within legal limits. As we know, the dub changes are more so, at least on the heavy dark themes, is because of the rating where it was airing. We've talked about all that before. But the actors still give it that same weight that they did, I think, in the original. The English dub cast is so strong. Greg Abbey as Yusei. Oh, Greg Abbey. I love his Yusei. And I know that the dub makes Yusei way more preachy than he is in the original Japanese even, at least at the beginning. But God, he's just so good. And then Ted Lewis is Jack. I love Cockney acted Jack Atlas. I think it supports a headcanon that I have that Jack is part Australian, part Japanese. I mean, he has an English name, so I don't think he's fully Japanese. So I think that's a cool headcanon. And I also really love the dub music, not just Hyperdrive. I'm a more fan of Hyperdrive than You Ride to Survive, though that is still really good. I also love the dub score a lot. The Japanese score, we're going to end the music later, but I'm going to talk about the dub score real quick. I love the mysterious kind of Aki's like little creepy theme that they associated with her and the Black Rose. Love that. I love Yusei's Synchro Summon theme. I love Jack's theme as well. They're kind of ingrained into my memory, as well as a lot of the jokes. Like Magic Glue, you know, everyone's favorite. What is it? So it's glue. You sworn allegiance to magic glue. Jack has pretty much most of the lines, as well as Crow. But I think all of the actors do such a good job. And I know that the dub didn't finish. And they skipped out on a lot of plot important stuff. I remember as a kid, like, where the heck did Jack get this new dragon from? Where the heck did he get this dragon? I don't remember this. At least I think it ended in a somewhat better place, I think, than GX did, certainly. After Aporia, certainly better than having Jaden be dead. Of course. I think that's a better spot. But they did skip around quite a bit. They skip around the episode where they go to the facility, right, with Sherry and Bruno, right, without the time travel. They cut that out. So we don't know, like, why the new world just changed history. It just kind of happens, and you just don't really get the explanation. Or about Jaeger's family and some other stuff. But yeah, the dub has a special place in my heart. It always will be. And I feel like it's just something I think out of any Yu-Gi-Oh show, I've rewatched the 5D's dub by far the most. So I have a very special place for it in my heart. It's what I grew up with. It kept me going. And I remember specifically rewatching season 1, which is the Dark Signers arc, and Fortune Cup on repeat as a kid. So I hold it very high regard for that reason, and the actors are fantastic. So I think it's one of the best Yu-Gi-Oh dubs, if I had to say. I think the dubs kind of drop off in quality after Zexal a little bit, just a little. I think that it's gone back up, I think, with Sevens and Go Rushes from what I've seen. But I didn't watch the Vrains dub, and I saw some of the Arc 5 dub, but yeah. So the 5D's dub, I think, is good. Jokes are good. It's what you expect from a Yu-Gi-Oh dub. So, yeah. Yeah. And now we're going to get to talk about the music, which is, I think, one of 5D's pillars. Because 5D's, I think, is besides Sevens, right? Unless you don't count the Go Rush using its opening and endings, have insert songs. So, and there's 3 of them, I believe. And plus the score and the openings and endings, of course.
Yeah, that is correct. And you know what? I think 5D's, when it comes to music, I think it's the strongest Yu-Gi-Oh show, to be honest, in terms of the quality of the openings, the quality of the endings, and the best musical decision that Yu-Gi-Oh, Konami, Gallop, whoever made the decision, ever made, was reaching out to a man named Masaki Endo and saying, hey, we want you to just take over the music for the entire final half of this series. He did opening 4, Believe in Nexus, which is some people's favorite openings. It's one of my favorites. He did opening 5, Going My Way, which I think is one of the best openings in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! Second best to Last Train. Like, Believe in Nexus and Going My Way are incredible, but Last Train, the second opening, I actually think is the best opening in 5Ds. There's just 3 insanely strong opening songs. And then for Masaki Endo to also do Yakusoku no Melody, which is the final song that plays in the final episode, which encapsulates the rock but emotional ballad and sadness of everybody saying goodbye and Yusei staying behind in the city so well. It's hard to even put into words. And then, of course, he also did Clear Mind, which is another amazing song that makes you want to run through a wall, as Yusei is, synchro summoning a shooting star dragon. Like, it is insane what this man did for Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's musical score down the road, and it's the greatest decision that was ever made regarding Yu-Gi-Oh! Music. Yusei's theme is amazing. Jack and Akiza's theme, amazing. Luna's theme is actually extremely underrated. I love her theme. Zone's theme.
Spirits.
And Zone's theme has like 3 different musical scores within one theme to, I guess, like show the complexity of his character, but Zone's theme is amazing. And then, of course, the endings, Close to You is one of my favorites. Ozone is one of my favorites. I mean, I could clearly go on and on about it, but 5D's musically is absolutely incredible, and I think is one of the, if not the best Yu-Gi-Oh! When it comes to its musical score, OST, openings, endings, insert songs. And I wish 5Ds became the standard moving forward of, hey, we're going to have some lyrical songs that are going to play in these intense moments. I mean, imagine like a rock song as Yuya is summoning Odd Eye's Raging Dragon for the first time. I mean, the score, even though that was, I believe, an unreleased score, which is very annoying, but the score was really good for that scene. But there were some amazing scenes that Arc 5 had in terms of dueling level that I think a song dedicated to it could have fit, a la A Clear Mind. And I hate that we didn't really get that in any of the shows besides Sevens, with like unique songs. But man, when you look back on it, 5Ds is just really unique in that regard, and it really, really worked. I think the musical score in 5D is what kind of adds to the specialness of that series.
I very much agree with you. Yeah, I think that in terms of an overall package, I'd say 5Ds is very, very strong. I think the insert songs kind of take it over. I think you guys will know, or I'll talk about this. Arc 5 has my favorite collection of openings and endings and background music, but I really do love the 5Ds' background music. Not just like the dual themes, but like the general like background music that just kind of sets scenes. It feels like something you'd listen to in a coffee shop, but I low-key love that. It's like so chill, but then it like when it gets really tense, there's just something about it that I really, really like. I've actually used some of the 5D scores in some of my Arc 5 manga dubs, actually, quite a few of them. So I really do love the background score, and I think it's very underappreciated. Of course, the dual themes are great. Yusei and Jack. I love that Jack's theme straight up sounds like you're going to a club. I don't know why they decided that, but it's great. My favorite insert song is Yakuso no Melody. It's just the fact it plays when Yusei and Aki are totally kissing in the garage, and then it goes to him talking to Ushio, the first 2 characters we got to really get to know, and it's just so beautiful. My favorite opening is Last Train, but my favorite ending is Future Colors. I feel like Future Colors is one of the most popular Yu-Gi-Oh! Endings with its visuals, because I've seen so many fans do Future Colors like style illustrations for other Yu-Gi-Oh! Shows, or even ones with their own OCs. I've seen so many versions of fan version of Future Colors. I mean, I feel like if that doesn't show how loved that ending is, I feel like that's a pretty big dedication. I've seen so many, and I've always wanted to do one for myself. Like, that's one of my big things I've always wanted to do. I think it'd be really cool. But 5D's storytelling in its musical evolution, like how Aki goes from like theme 1 to theme 2, the evolution with Yusei's theme, but like I swear that Yusei's theme in Japanese and his English theme too, it just makes every single summon that Yusei sounds make it a million times more epic with his background music playing.
Yeah,
like it just makes it like even the most simple synchro summon seem like the biggest, coolest thing in the world. It's like, and I think that's the evolution of music. And I do agree with you, Dylan. I wish we had more insert songs. I honestly wish we had more character songs and like singing. Vanguard has quite a few character songs that were never in the show, but they were released as albums that I would have loved. We've had some, the idol groups, I think, have had some actual regular songs, but I honestly would love, because a lot of the Yu-Gi-Oh! VAs, if you guys didn't know, are very good singers.
Yeah.
They're very amazing singers, like Arthur Lounsbury, of course, Kensho Ono. Of course, I believe Yusei's actor is also a singer, if I remember correctly. So we could have had some character songs. Let Yusei, Jack, and Crow be a boy band. Like a lot of the fandom likes to feel like they're a boy band. Let them have a whole Team 5D's theme song or something. I don't know. I'd love that. So yeah, the music's really, really strong. And it always gets me in the feels, especially. And I always feel like I have to rave when I hear Jack's theme. I have to rave. Like, if I have a wedding, I kind of want to play Jack's music on the dance floor and just rave to Jack's theme on the dance floor.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Jeff, what do you think about the music?
have a bit of a more in-depth kind of opinion when it comes to the music, because like when I think of the music, I usually think primarily to the openings and endings, because that's always been more my general focus, mostly because of my own visual background. I associate the music directly with their visuals and how well the two interact with each other to kind of get a full view. For me, particular, Last Train, absolute best opening. I mean,
Yep, agreed.
Had this in terms of its relation to its associated season, best visual storytelling and relevancy to the plot, and the music behind it just was so exciting and built up the tension and the foreboding of what was to come. Believe in Nexus following that. Very exciting opening. Absolutely loved it. It was a complete jam all the way through. But in terms of for me, in the terms of the visual storytelling behind it, it felt a little redundant. It had some key shots, particularly in the representation of the villains. Unfortunately, I'm blanking on their names at the moment.
Iliaster. Just call him Iliaster.
Iliaster, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. So like that, it felt like they could have done a bit more with kind of like upping up the visual cues in that. My favorite ending overall is actually Close to You. I think in terms of the endings, it actually had the best visuals. It was a very stark contrast to me in comparison to the other visuals and tone of the openings and endings. It had a very calm and fun vibe of the characters just riding through the city at night, experiencing the nightlife, just genuinely enjoying their time together. And considering this was the season 4 ending, it gave me the interpretation that this was like meant to be visualized as the calm before the storm.
Yeah, no, it's very, very well said. Yeah, it's just like the music just, fit the characters so well. It fit hyping up the arc so well with the openings and endings. Like, it was just really, really good overall. I will say, I know this is appreciating Yu-Gi-Oh, but the only opening and ending I really didn't like, for me, it's one of my least favorite openings in all of Yu-Gi-Oh, is, that first opening. I don't know why.
What?
It's just the singing.
I love the first opening. I mainly like the second half of the song than the first half.
Yeah, the visuals aren't terrible, but
I'm a little bit more forgiving with Kizuna Bonds, because it was the go in for Yu-Gi-Oh 5Ds, and they were definitely introducing a lot of new radical concepts, like with turbo dueling. So I feel like that was a song that was definitely both narratively and literally kind of finding itself.
Yeah, you know what?
Yeah.
That's a very good way to look at it. That is a very good way to look at it.
I also feel like I like it because almost all of Hyperdrive's visuals come from that opening, and I love
Yeah.
Hyperdrive.
Yeah, Hyperdrive was good. All right, well, listen, favorite characters and favorite duels, the next two things we're going to talk about. Rarity, would you like to start on favorite characters?
Yeah, I feel like this in the duel sec. Do you want us to do them together or just separate?
Oh, we can do them separate if you want.
Okay. So favorite characters. So, when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh, I generally feel like my top 2 characters in almost every Yu-Gi-Oh, not all the time, are usually connected. Like for DM, remember I said my favorite was the Kaiba brothers. Yeah. My favorite characters in 5Ds are Jack and Carly, my top 2.
Oh,
and I'll
love
talk about
that.
top 3 in
Love
a second.
that Carly pick.
I talk about Jack first. He's number 1. Jack Atlas was my favorite rival, though he has been recently dethroned by Mr. Yugioh Zervelgear, but very, very, very close. I happen to like the purple rivals a lot for some reason, the purple dudes who are blonde. Apparently, I have a type, apparently. But Jack's development as a character is unbelievable. Like, the way that, like, he goes from giving up everything, and the fact Yusei never, like, he got mad at him for stealing the runner, but I don't think Yusei ever blamed him for wanting to get out of the system. I don't think that was it at all. Like, because he was kind of a fraud as a king. He didn't really earn it. But then, of course, we see in his future that he did earn it, and his whole character arc of learning to become a true king. I argue his journey of becoming, like, basically the equivalent, the duel king, the king of duels, king of games. Out of all the characters, though I haven't finished 7s yet, I think have gone, like, to become the best player in the world. I think Jack does that storyline absolutely the best. he gets humbled, and a lot of his development is because of Carly. I love Carly. I feel like she's such a relatable character to so many people. Someone who struggles, wants to kind of work her way up. She's in her dream career, but not working in the best place, and maybe isn't getting to do it the best way that they want, kind of like using it as a stepping stone. She lives out of her car, presumably, and then she like obviously rents that hotel, right, with Jack to make her not believe, because I'm pretty sure that's a hotel, not an apartment, but I'm not quite sure, because it very much, I think, was implied Charlie was living out of her car. And it's just the bond that they had, and I think you said this in like your Valentine's video, I think that was this year or last year, about like best romance in Yu-Gi-Oh. Yeah, I think you made a video about them recently. Yeah, best romance in Yu-Gi-Oh, heads down, 1000%. And then they ruined it, and I'm forever salty that, and whatever the reason was, I know you could argue about the Carly Colt thing. I think it's because that's when Shin Yoshida took over as a writer, and we know that Shin Yoshida has loves to push his 3 main boys and push everyone else to the side.
Yep.
And just, he doesn't like writing female characters. Like the fact that Jack in the final episode basically disses Carly after, you know, he basically said that, you know, like she saved me. Like, it very much was implied they were going to get together, and they just didn't. And I think that if they did, I feel like 5Ds would probably become like my number 2 Yu-Gi-Oh! If they actually went through with that storyline. Very, very upset. That was basically retconned. Like, if they at least explained that Jack was not telling Carly about the whole thing because, you know, he didn't want her to get traumatized by, like, what she did as a dark signer, then I would at least take that as a consolation. But at the moment, that's just, like, a theory. There's no confirmation. They don't bring it up. But the fact he's so cold to her after that is just, feels so out of character. But Jack's journey is great. I love them. And him and Carly just, And then my number 3 is Yusei. As a kid, Yusei was my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh! Protagonist, though he's been dethroned by Udius. Okay, the Go Rush Boys just took over my 5D spots. But very, very close. Yusei, he's just the kind of person that you want to have in your life. He's like the ultimate form of a friend. He's so, like, he's able to make the best out of anything that he's given. He's a role model. He was a role model to me as a kid, and I think he's a role model for many, many people. He's just the kind of person we all want to be, and he's so fun to watch, and his flaws and the guilt that he harbors over Zero Reverse, and that's also touched on in Bonds Beyond Time as well, which I think is kind of an underrated aspect of that film, which we'll talk about that in the 5D's OVA next episode. If you guys are wondering why I haven't brought those up yet, that'll be its own episode next time. But Yusei, and just, and he's always so fun to watch. Also, I like his design a lot. His design is good. But pretty much all the other characters in 5Ds are super, super good. But the Scoop Ship and Yusei, definitely my top 3. I absolutely just love those characters. But the other characters are not very far behind. It's very, very hard because 5Ds, I think, has one of the strongest main groups of characters. I think the Signers are probably the most strong main character group in any Yu-Gi-Oh! Of our main, like, core characters. I feel like they have the strongest group. Because that's what the whole show was focused on, so it makes a lot of sense. It
absolutely does. Great top 3 there. Jeff, would you like to go next? Your top 3 favorite characters?
Sure. As I said earlier, my top favorite character is actually Leo. Mostly because there's a lot I personally relate to him. Also, I was a Morphtronic player myself, so I instantly just fell in love with the character. Also, his devotion to his sister, and the fact that he's this goofy kid, and his build up to sort of maturing a bit and sort of becoming the hero that his sister sees him to be, and then eventually evolving into a signer, was just an amazing thing to watch for me. Even though at some points it was mostly just due to the writing, it was very kind of like underwhelming, or just like, okay, this feels like this should have been here or here. My second most favorite, another character I genuinely relate to a lot, is Jack. I also kind of tag Carly together with him as one, so it's a little funny on that one.
Yeah, we both like the Scoop Ship. We're both big Scoop Ship stans, so it makes sense.
Yes. Jack's just progression from betraying his friends to his redemption, to eventually just kind of finding his own path to strength is amazing, and then showing that he actually did become the king in the epilogue that he always wanted to be was just an amazing an amazing overall arc to watch. My final favorite character is Yusei. He is just the absolute relatable character. And as Rarity said, he's just the kind of person you really want to become. Like, he embodies so many things. And when you pointed out the zero reverse thing just now, it made me think back to what we said in the beginning regarding what I said about survivor's guilt and Zone. The two actually interconnect in that way, because he has that same survivor's guilt from zero reverse.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, it's a great point. Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, like, that is he just was such a relatable character that you, like, really just kind of wanted to model yourself after. I mean, I remember when I was, 17, 18 watching, that's the age that he was. And yeah, like, in late high school, I was like, man, I wish I could be like Yusei. That's like the kind of character he was. But no, great top three there. It's funny because my favorite characters are actually very similar. My number one is Yusei. Yusei is my favorite character. I know, a real bold pick there, picking the pro tag.
It's not Aki?
It's not Aki. No, it's not.
Aww.
Aki's in my top 5, but she's actually not in my top 3. She is in my top 5.
Aww.
Yeah, no. I listen, I do love Aki, but I just well,
it's fair.
I hate what they I don't hate what they did with her, but I felt like she definitely had a significant drop off after the Darksiders arc.
Agreed.
Listen, you can make rant videos on almost every girl in Studio Gallup Yu-Gi-Oh! About how they were, like, mistreated, especially the ones that got off to a good starts, which I would say Akiza, Yuzu, and, Aoi, I don't know if she ever got off to a good start, but, the groundwork was there. It's just, it's a shame. But anyway, yeah, Yusei is number one for me. Love the guy. As Jeff and Rarity have already pointed out, he's just the kind of guy you want to be like, and you can just model yourself after, and you're going to live a very good life, I think, and you're going to be good to people. And he was just such a great guy, but still had his struggles, which I thought made him very relatable. Number 2 for me is Jack. Just an amazing rival character. Actually, Yusei and Jack on all of our top threes here. Yusei and Jack, I think, are the two probably best characters in the show. They're also two of my favorites. I loved seeing Jack's journey. Fully agree in regards to not loving how he treated Carly post Darksiders, because it did feel very out of character based on what he said about her in that Godwin duel. I just think I chalk that up to bad writing, and probably, Shin Yoshida. I don't want to blame him for everything, but I mean, he's done a lot of good things, but come on. And then number 3, I always this is kind of like that tech role where I have bounced between 3 characters, and those 3 characters that I bounced between, Akiza is one, although now I probably would put her at 5. And then the other 2 I bounced between Kiryu, who I really, really loved. I thought he was an incredible foil to Yusei in that Darksiders arc. One of my favorite duels, which we'll get to next, that first matchup. Even their rematch was stellar. But the character, and then, of course, Crashtown, I loved his journey there. But the character that I am going to go ahead and pick for number 3, because of the emotions that he invoked out of me with the death scene that happened, is Bruno. I thought Bruno was a really, really, really good, complex character. You've seen the sleeper agent character in so many different pieces of media. I actually think 5Ds almost got it perfectly right. I think the only thing that I wish happened differently was he beat Yusei the first time they dueled after that, gala. I think that was a duel Yusei absolutely could have afforded to lose, and I think it would have driven home the point of, hey, Yusei's got to reach that next level of Synchro Summon even more. So I think they missed an opportunity there, but despite that, Bruno was a great, great mysterious counterpoint to the Team 5Ds, and then, of course, Antinomy, which was his actual role, being on the team of Zone and Iliaster, and it all culminated in one of the most emotional moments of Bruno's death scene at the end of, the duel in the Arc Cradle. And I think the reason that's such an emotional scene is because of how good of a character he was. He felt like a core member of Team 5Ds, and he really was. Even though he was a sleeper agent, and sure, he was, there because of Zone, you can see, he helped Yusei reach that next level of Synchro Summoning, which was vital in Yusei defeating Zone. So he still played that role to Team 5Ds, even in his death. And man, I just thought his character was done really, really well. And he was one of the strongest parts, in my opinion, of the second half of 5Ds, especially that Arc Cradle arc. And so, yeah, if you ask me today, I'd probably put Bruno there. Sometimes I put Kiadu, sometimes I argue Aki, but that's kind of my top 5 in most instances. But yeah, love how we had the same Jack and Yusei, and then I had Bruno, Rarity had Carly, Jeff had Leo, which I love. So there was a little bit of a differentiation there, which is cool.
I think our duels are going to be pretty different.
I think they will, and I mean, let's just jump right into it. And again, if you guys are watching, we appreciate you all watching and listening. This is Appreciating Yu-Gi-Oh! Episode 11 on the 5Ds anime. Leave, if you want to rank the arcs, if you want to put your favorite characters, if you want to put your favorite duels, please do it all, or do whatever you want to put. We love reading, and I can guarantee you I'll be reading through it, and I'm sure Rarity and Jeff will as well. Rarity, you started the favorite duels. Jeff, do you want to kick off the favorite duels, if you want to do your top 2, top 3, whatever you want to do? Cool.
Sure, absolutely. My favorite, starting from the bottom. This is actually a bit of a deadlock between two particular duels, because I can't rightly put one above the other. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna take that back. I can.
Okay.
Okay.
We like the confidence.
These are both where I mentioned into the psychological elements of the series. I think these two particular, and my number one of these are my top 3. The Misty versus Akiza duel and the Luna versus the Professor duel.
Wow, love that. Yeah, really unique picks there. Love that.
Mm-hmm. But I genuinely like the Akiza and Misty duel is in my top 3 here, primarily because it really delves heavily into the psychological trauma. I don't want to use a particular word for this. I'll use brainwashing in terms of this between Akiza's experience with Sayer and Misty's tragedy with losing her brother to the Arcadia movement, and just the way Misty was really playing the whole thing, the duel. It was less like a duel to me, and more like an emotional tormental breakdown.
Yeah, no, it's a really that duel is really good. I mean, that is a really good duel. I think that's a really good pick.
Also seeing Sayer actually get eaten, loved it. Guy deserves
the fact
that
the 5Ds art book, or the 10th anniversary art book, confirms he was still alive, then he got arrested. Boo! He should have died.
You know what? If they weren't going to do anything with him, which I think is a big missed opportunity, then yeah, honestly, I agree with that. They should have just confirmed. The fact they confirmed that he's alive makes it more annoying, because in canon, then it feels more like irritating that when they were flopping over ideas in the pre-WRGP, why not have him come back for 5-10 episodes and have, Akiza and Misty and Carly go after him and get their revenge, similar to what the guys did with Crashtown. It's a big missed opportunity, but yeah.
What if video?
Yeah,
right. What if video about it?
Yeah. But Jeff, I'd love to hear your Luna Professor. Oh
yeah. This is definitely one of the more interesting aspects of the psychological that I go into with this one. Just the way the Professor, he came across very kind of creepy in the way he was trying to really get inside Luna's head, and it really showed. And they really made an effort to showcase how uncomfortable she was really becoming because of him.
And she's remember, she's 10, 11. She's a little kid.
Yeah, that made it just all the worse. How did this? I looked back at this duel sometime years later. I'm like, how did this get past the screening process?
Right.
The dub version's still pretty creepy too.
Also, it kind of segues into my second most favorite duel, which is actually the DVAC and Twins duel. The DVAC and Twins duel, in my opinion, was definitely probably the second most It was in my opinion, it was probably the second most entertaining duel to my first one. Primarily because Leo and Luna both had their roles to play in that scenario, and the fact that they kind of gave the win to Luna at the end. I get she is the signer in that scenario; she was destined to fight the monkey, so to speak. But I like the fact that they were both given their responsibilities. Luna had to go to the spirit world to save Ancient Fairy Dragon on that end. Leo on the other hand, he stepped up and took his sister's place to protect her. That showcased the courage that he demonstrates throughout the course of the series, and would have been the absolute most perfect point for him to actually evolve into a signer, which was already tailored into throughout the course of the Dark Signers arc.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. I do. It's funny because I'm not the biggest fan of that duel, but I certainly have seen. I feel like that's one of the more like divisive duels of the Dark Signers arc, because I have seen people, it's not just you, Jeff, that really do love that duel. And so I'm sure, there's also people that like me that don't really love it. It's definitely a very divisive duel, but it definitely has its people that love it, probably for that twin brotherly sister aspect that you kind of touched on there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think though, in my personal opinion, if I was to maybe go back and adjust it, I would have had Leo actually pull a similar thing to what Aki and Yusei did in the WRGP, and have him summon Ancient Fairy Dragon for the finishing blow.
Yeah, that would be cool. And who knows? Like, if Leo was going to get his signer mark in that duel, which I'm sure he would have in the original script, like, maybe that's what would, like, who knows how it would have played out, Maybe that's how it would have played out if they kept to the original script.
Maybe. Okay, so to cap my top three off, this is probably gonna come very obviously, but it's Jack and Carly. Simple dual perfection right there.
Yeah.
There is it touches on every single note that I've probably covered in the course of this. It covers the darker aspects, the emotional trauma, the romance, even kind of the nature of survivor's guilt that I've touched upon a couple of times.
Yeah, no, that's a really good top pick. For me, that's actually, I have that ranked number 5, so I have that duel extremely high as well. But really good top 3 there. I'll go real quick, and then Rarity, I'll kick it over to you. Number 3 for me is Yusei versus Roger towards the end of the Dark Signers arc. I think that is one of the best duels for Yusei. Whenever anybody talks about, oh, Yusei's a Mary Sue, Yusei's a perfect character, I just say, watch that duel. And if you still feel that way, then you're missing a lot of context within the series. I mean, the emotional breakdown that Yusei has in that duel. Jeff talked about it a few minutes ago, Yusei having that survivor's guilt. Well, that is the duel where it is really, really on display, talking about how he feels personally responsible for Jack not having parents, for Crow not having parents, all because of the action of, his father being a part of, what happened in the NRD disaster. And man, the Zero Reverse disaster. And I just love the duel. I think the action is amazing. Roger with the spider webs. Like, remember, Roger also earlier in the Dark Signers arc is the one that, is responsible for like the disappearance of Rally and everyone. So Yusei even able to kind of get his revenge there, I think was really, really good.
And Martha too.
And Martha, everybody. That whole crew. So I loved that duel. Thought it was a really, really good duel. One of the best of the show. Number 2 for me, I actually have done a What Made a Duel special on it, is Jack, Rua, Ruka versus Aporia. I think it's the best duel of the Neo arc Cradle arc. I think it's better than the Jack Yusei finale, which is a really, really good duel. But man, you talk about having it all. The insanely high stakes, the emotion, Leo finally becoming a signer in a crazy, crazy way after Aporia just kept targeting him and drilling, hey, this is despair, you're in despair, this is despair. And Leo actually dies before being revived thanks to a luck roulette. And seeing Leo die also started like to drain Luna's actual life. And Jack is just, screaming at Leo and thankfully, to wake up, and thankfully, of course, he's saved. But like, you're watching that, and like for a split second, you're starting to believe, like, Jesus Christ, is Aporia about to kill off 3 of like the most important characters in the show? Like, they really did an amazing job of framing it where it looked like there was going to be a major character death, and then thankfully there wasn't. And then it seems like Aporia ends up dying when he finally kind of realizes like the feeling of hope. And then, of course, he comes back a few episodes later, which I didn't mind at all. The duel action was incredible. The team up for the final blow was incredible. Yeah, I absolutely love that duel. But I think the greatest one that had an insane amount of turns, that had incredible backstory, that led to one of the better rivalries in 5Ds that wasn't Yusei Jack, is the first Yusei versus Kiryu duel. The first one in the Darksiders where Yusei, again, technically loses. It's the first time in a duel where Yusei actually looks human and beatable. And Rarity said it earlier in this recording. When she watched it, her jaw was on the floor. I think mine was too, because you just don't expect Yusei to lose that duel. But you watch like the backstory of Team Satisfaction and how like insane it is, and that Kiryu, chose death when the Darksiders, the spirit basically approached him, and like he was being starved in jail, so he was going to be probably dying anyway, and just how he went power hungry, and he believes he's in the right, and like anybody that's watching knows that like Yusei, of course, didn't leave his friend to die, but in Kiryu's mind, he believes it. And it's kind of compelling because you get why Kiryu believes it, right? With the cop shaking Yusei's hand or patting Yusei on the back, even though Yusei didn't want to have any part of the cop doing that. And Kiryu sees that and thinks that Yusei sold him out. It's a beautiful storytelling. And then you cut between that, Yusei, of course, realizing one of his former best friends is still alive, and then losing the duel the first time we see an Earthbound Immortal summoned, which was an insane sequence. The duel is so good. I think it's the best one in 5Ds. But yeah, those are my top 3.
I guess I get to go.
You do.
My number 3 is the Yusei versus Jack ceremonial duel. I had a lot of different duels I could have put here. My top 2 are pretty like stagnant, but I've talked about before that my favorite rivalries in Yu-Gi-Oh! Are the ones where the characters have a really personal bond, but also my favorite rivalries, because my top 2 favorites are obviously Yugioh and Yugioh and Jack and Yusei, is that they grow past the point of hating each other. That's what I think rivalries, they don't stay stagnant. Look, as much as I love Kaiba and Attempt, they pretty much have the same dynamic throughout the entire show. Nothing really changes. But Yusei and Jack's rivalry evolves. They were really close as kids. Then we know that Jack beat Yusei in a flashback, so there was a little bit of that there. Then, of course, Jack betrays Yusei and all that different stuff. And it culminates that Yusei, in a sense, by beating Jack in the Fortune Cup, right, helped Jack figure out his path eventually, right, kind of leading him to meeting Carly and blah, blah, blah. But this final duel is Jack trying to help Yusei now, the reverse, figure out what Yusei wants to do. The fact you see all the supporting characters, you see Rally and the crew in the car. The card play, of course, is great. And they're driving through the satellite. And, like, Yusei does that big jump of faith where he's, like, gambling on a draw. And him saying, well, I have to take a risk when I'm fighting you. And then they end with the Junk Warrior finish. And you hear the theme play. It's just, so good. And then they fist bump afterwards. It's such a good rival moment. It reminds me again, I'm definitely going to talk about the Yugioh and Yugioh 98 duel and their finale duel when we get to the Go Rush video, but just really good characters who can come at the end of the day after having a good duel and shaking their hand, fist bumping. Just, it warms my heart. It's a good show of sportsmanship. So really, really awesome stuff. My second favorite is Yusei versus Aki round 2. That duel has such good storytelling with the card play. Thord of Malice of what it represents for Aki herself, like really starting to embrace becoming the monster, and how its effect, right, keeps the opponent's monster on the field so you can keep hitting them over and over again, and it's kind of her representation of wanting to just lash out at all the people who have hurt her. And how Yusei uses, like, literally a card called Release Restraint Wave, like the way that it's worded to free her of that. And then, her dad stepping in and the fact in the hospital. it's such really good emotional storytelling and how she learns to control her powers and her dad. It's just really, really, really good stuff. And I think really cements Yusei and Aki's bond. I love their first duel too. So that's why that's there. And my number one, I don't think this is a shock. Jack versus Carly is my number one. I don't want to repeat too much about what Jeff said about it, but one thing I really love in this duel is the Dark Signer, like, AU thing. That has inspired so much fan fiction, so much fan art, and as y'all know, I am an AU lover. That is like the dream, when they put that alternate universe idea right in your face, that you can directly take from and you didn't have to make it up. Like, it's so cool, and Jack would have lost that duel, right? He was outplayed if he didn't get through to Carly, right? Because he used the trap card, changing destiny. If he didn't get through to her, he would have died. But he broke through to her. And I think that's really, really powerful stuff. And the ending, how Jack was going to draw, right? He was willing to take himself out, too, so she wouldn't die alone. Like, dude, I don't think we've had a Yu-Gi-Oh character think like that before. I, funny enough, just watched the Gakuto and Nail duel in 7. I got to that yesterday. And I know, like, that's like Gakuto taking himself out for the team because he was going to lose. But no, the Jack was going to win. But he decided, so he didn't want Carly to die by herself, that they were going to go to hell together. And then she dies in his arms and she says, I love you. So good. Such good perfection. Just, so peak. It's probably my favorite duel in the entire franchise, actually. I think it is. Wow. I think it's my favorite duel. It's my number one. The Udius and Zuijo finale duel in Go Rush from season 1 is also really, really up there. But just, that duel is so good. It just gets me. I've rewatched that duel so many times. Just peak. It's so good.
I absolutely have to agree, and honestly, you went into the symbolism a lot more than I wish I had.
It's okay. I kind of figured we had the same number one because I kind of figured because, again, we're very similar, at least on Jack and Carly's front, but I'm glad I got to explain it from my perspective. But yeah, really, really good stuff.
Yeah, that duel in my top 5 for sure. It's a very, very good duel. Yeah, really good picks there, guys. And the last thing we're going to talk about is the age-old question: would you prefer if the show ended after Dark Signers as originally intended? This is, whenever I ask for hot takes, this is always one that comes in from quite a few different people. 5Ds should have ended after the Dark Signers. The Yu-Gi-Oh anime franchise should have ended after the Dark Signers. And I'll just give I've given my answer before, so I'll just go first right here. No. My answer to that is a resounding no. I just think that it is a crazy take that some people have that everything after the Dark Signers regarding 5Ds was like unwatchably bad, because I don't understand where that comes from. Sure, I do agree that it does dip in quality immediately following the Dark Signers. I would not argue that, but by the time you get to the Arc Cradle, the final arc of Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, I think the Arc Cradle is just like a tick below the quality of where the Dark Signers arc was. I think the Arc Cradle is still a top 10 arc in Yu-Gi-Oh! So to look at the arcs that came after the Dark Signers arc and say, in all seriousness, it's not worth watching at all, it's terrible, we did not need any of it after Dark Signers, I just think that is a crazy, crazy take that I will just honestly never agree with. I get where people are coming from. Maybe this take really originates from people that only watched the dub, because Arc Cradle is not present and there's a lot of like missing episodes after the Dark Signers that make some continuity points, like Jack summoning his upgraded version of RDA, a little weird. So like I always try to like see where people are coming from with takes. That's what I've always tried to do the 10 years I've been doing content. But this is one that, like, unless you're referring to maybe the dub version of the show, I just don't understand where this take comes from. I mean, I know Fortune Cup and Dark Signers are excellent, but to say everything after it is like unwatchably bad, that it shouldn't exist, I think is a crazy reach, and one that I just do not agree with in the slightest, personally. But Rarity, I'd love to know your thoughts on it.
I have a complicated answer.
Okay.
So if the show ended after Dark Signers originally intended, I would have been satisfied. Which is my answer.
Yeah,
I
sure.
would have been 100% satisfied, and I think the story as originally outlined, ending it there, is a good point. I think the same thing about Go Rush Season 1 as well. But what we got afterwards is still really good. I think it's still really, really good. You saw my list. Arc Cradle's up there. It's really, really, really good. So I think that I remember as a kid, of course, with the dub, I was like, why didn't we just end it here? And I remember I didn't like the middle part of 5Ds for a long time. I just wasn't. I rewatched it, of course. I'm trying to rewatch these series for these videos to refresh myself. And I'm like, yeah. Because I think I was one of those people who would say I would have been okay if it ended there. I maybe would have preferred it. But now I'm like, no. But if it did end as originally intended with the original ideas, because the biggest thing after Dark Signers that I would have wanted to see was Ruo becoming a signer. And if the original idea was for him to always become one, then I think it would have been okay. But missing out on Arc Cradle, missing out on Bruno and Sherry, and of course that epilogue duel that I just talked about, which they could have also put into the Dark Signers arc theoretically at the end if they wanted to do that as well. But yeah, I would say I would not prefer it, but if it happened, I would have been fully satisfied, which I guess just kind of shows how well they wrapped up the story. I feel like you can say that almost about any Yu-Gi-Oh arc at any point at the end. If you're like, if the show ended here, you would have been satisfied. I feel like that's a common thing for, I feel like almost every Yu-Gi-Oh except for Arc 5, because every arc continued into the next. They weren't really segmented. Like if Zexal ended after Zexal 1, I would have been fine with that too, for example. But obviously I think Zexal 2 is better. We'll get to that in a few months. But yeah, that's my thought on it.
Yeah, no, I well said. Jeff, your thoughts on would you have preferred if the show ended after Dark Signers?
Absolutely not. The Dark Signers was a great point in the series. I understand where Rarity's coming from, how it could have been a very satisfying way to end 5Ds, but in my opinion, there was just way too much potential in the elements at play to want to end it there. And also, as you said, the preceding arcs, none of them were perfect, but they weren't so bad that I wouldn't warrant their existence.
Crash Town is worth it just for the exploration.
Oh, absolutely.
We're talking about Cradle. Crash Town's 100% worth it. I can understand cutting out the pre-WRGP, but like they needed to set up the tournament-ish. Maybe not that long, but you know. I feel like, honestly, if you don't really like those episodes, you could probably just watch a list of cutting out a lot of the one-episode duels and just, like, watch the ones with Team New World in them and a few others, and, yeah, you could just do that if you're not interested in that.
I personally think if you were to actually just kind of cut out or rework the pre-WRGP, almost maybe nobody would really have that opinion, because honestly I feel like a lot of the complaints that come from people who say, oh, it should have ended after the Dark Signers arc, was because they saw the pre-WRGP arc and were just completely underwhelmed.
It like goes from like the best arc to the worst arc. You're gonna understand that drop in quality.
Exactly.
Especially because I think the animation quality also drops a little bit for a while as well during those episodes too.
But leading into the WRGP going into Crash Town and Arc Cradle, it really picks itself back up. Maybe not in every way that everyone would want, but you can't deny that the duels like against Team Ragnarok, Team Taiyo, Antinomy, against Zone, they were just so epic.
Yeah, no, I think it's well said. I mean, there is certainly, right, it's one of those weird hypotheticals where and I get where Rarity is coming from as well, where, right, if it ends after the Dark Signers, you know, people would be fine and content because you just don't know what would have happened after. But knowing what we know happened after,
yeah,
I think it's hard for me to then go back and be like, oh yeah, you know what, I think it should have ended there, knowing that there was a lot of great content that was still to come with 5Ds. But yeah, really great stuff. I mean, I think this is probably going to end up being the longest Appreciating Yu-Gi-Oh episode, clocking in close to 90 minutes here. I am going to let the two wonderful people that have joined me for this episode kind of promote some stuff that might be going on. Again, all their social medias are going to be linked down below. A wonderful, wonderful, fun discussion here on Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, the anime. We're going to talk about the manga next. I know there was a little bit of a break there. It's because I was moving
we're
a lot.
We're gonna do the 5Ds OVA and Bonds Beyond Time, then the manga.
Oh,
remember?
Yeah, well, even better. So we're gonna do the movie, the OVA, and then the manga. Yeah, there's me not even knowing my own segment scheduling.
It's okay.
All right, well, thank God we have Rarity.
That's why you have an amazing co-host.
That's exactly it. Thank God we have Rarity to, keep the facts there, which is great. So, really, really fun stuff to come, of course. Rarity, I'll let you kind of promote your stuff. As always, thank you so much for joining me. What's going on in the world of Rarity Fangirl?
Thank you. So on my end, as you guys know, if you guys follow me on Twitter, you guys see my fun Go Rush related posts, things like that. If you want to know what's going on with the Go Rush dub, I pretty much post about it every week and sometimes do analysis on Twitter threads. I'm also currently still watching through Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s. I have a reaction thread if you guys are interested. A lot of people have been very interested in my reaction to 7s. I just finished Arc 4 yesterday, so I'm entering Season 2 next time I continue. Very, very excited. I no longer hate Roa, so people know I've been hating Roa. I feel mad about him now, but we're not in the hating stage anymore. But in terms of project stuff, we are making really good way on my end for the Yuri Duel Links dub project. We've gotten some recording done. I posted a preview. We're hopefully going to start getting pieces of that out. Hopefully. We've had some delays with voice actors being sick and things. It happens. But you guys know I've always been a quality over quantity person. And as for the Mystery Arc 5 project, that's kind of been on hold a little bit, just because of some personal stuff, but hopefully we can get that back on track, and yeah, so things are always going good, and of course I will be here on the Appreciating Yu-Gi-Oh! Segment, and I hope to get some more solo videos out. I really want to do an analysis, Go Rush analysis videos out. I'd love to make a giant video essay about Yugioh and Yugioh. Otherwise, that'll probably just be the Appreciating Yu-Gi-Oh! Segment. When we get to that Go Rush, probably just be that, but no, I'm trying not to keep that too long. But everything's going good over on my end. And Jeff, what do you have to tell of what's going on in your world?
Everything's going good on my end as well. I have been away from social media for quite a while, but I have recently opened back up my Twitter account, or X if you prefer, and I am going to be opening Blue Sky very soon. I also will be going into opening commissions again in the near future, as well as possibly going into creating custom merch.
Jeff, you know what you have to make if you want my wallet. Any Yugioh Switch, I will give you money. Please.
So I'm looking.
That's awesome. And not to interject there, but I will vouch for Jeff as well. If anybody's looking for an artist, he did this beautiful Yusei Stardust commission for me a couple years back. And of course, we will have all of his socials linked down below in case you want to see any of his other work. But I can definitely vouch for Jeff that he is a very easy person to work with, very, very kind person, and a great artist as well.
Same for me.
Thank you very much, Dylan. You too, Rarity. All that being said, if you like my concept, please follow and feel free to reach out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jeff. So yes, happy. Thank you, Jeff, for joining us.
It was an absolute honor to be here.
Yeah, no, it was an honor to have you, man. We really appreciate it. And of course, to anybody that is still watching at this point, probably about 90 minutes in, well, listen, you guys are the true MVP here of not only the segment, but of this channel. Thank you for being so dedicated to this segment and to all of these videos and to us, gushing about a different topic of Yu-Gi-Oh! Media. It's really, really cool. So hopefully you enjoyed. Leave some of your lists down below in the comments. This has been Appreciating Yu-Gi-Oh! Episode 11, the Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds anime. Huge thank you to Jeff JL Arts 55, and a huge thank you to Rarity Fangirl 31. Their stuff will be linked down below. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll talk to you in the comments, and I hope you have
an amazing day.
Take care, guys.